Hi, if this is your first time here, welcome to my YouTube channel. Or if you're like me and you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Chaotic Curl, and in this week's video, we're actually going to be using my Sentro knitting machine to make a hooded scarf. But before we get into that, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and of course, don't forget to join me over on my TikTok and Instagram at chaoticcurl_crafts, where you'll be able to see pictures of this current project that I'm working on, as well as this cardigan that I made. It's a color block cardigan, and reels of the projects that I'm working on now. So actually for right now, for December, I'm making different crochet ornaments for a tiny little Christmas tree that I have. So if you'd like to see what's going on there, you can always go ahead and check that out again on my Instagram or on TikTok at chaoticcurl_crafts. I'll see you over there. And so for this week's project, like I said, we're going to be using my Sentro knitting machine. This is the 48 pin knitting machine right here. So this is the one that I'm going to be using to make the tubes for the hood as well as the scarf. And the yarn that I'm going to be using this week is actually going to be the Mandala bonus bundle, which I've used before to make another project again with the knitting machine. So it seems to be my favorite yarn to actually use for this machine. It runs through very smoothly and actually works up very fast. I know it's the machine, so it's going to work up fast anyway, but this yarn definitely runs through perfectly so that I can crank quicker and get things done a lot quicker with minimal knots. So I definitely enjoy using this yarn on this machine. And the yarn is called Meowth. This is what the colorway looks like. And if you are going to be using knitting needles, it does ask for a size 5, if I'm not mistaken. That's a 3.75 millimeter, or a crochet hook. It's going to be the H8 5 millimeter, and this is a 3 lightweight yarn, as you can see right there. And it comes with 1,181 yards, or 1,080 meters. And it has, if I'm not mistaken, that's 10.5 ounces or 300 grams of yarn. So this is what it's looking like. And I'm hoping it's going to be enough for the rows that I plan on making everything. I do want the scarf to be pretty long, so I'm hoping that's going to work out. And of course, I'm going to be using the waste yarn method. So I'm actually going to cast on with waste yarn before I add this yarn to my Sentro knitting machine, just so that I can get better, crisper edges on the hood as well as on the ends of the scarf. So now that you have all the information, let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started on this project, I just want to let you guys know you will like to have a basic knowledge on how to use the Sentro knitting machine. I will quickly be going over how to cast on, and of course, once I'm done, how to cast off for this project. But you still want to have that knowledge just in case something I say might be a little bit confusing. So if you are a beginner or new to using the Sentro knitting machine, I do suggest that you look up some videos on YouTube on how to cast on and cast off, especially with the waste yarn method, since it does require kind of like 2 separate casts on. First with the waste yarn to actually begin the project, and then with the actual yarn to build the project. So do keep that in mind. But like I said, I will be quickly reviewing how to do that. So if you do already have the basic knowledge, it shouldn't be too difficult to catch on with my explanation as well. But now we can get started. Okay, so I have my machine set up and ready to go for the project. I reset the counter to 0, and I have the machine on the tube setting, so I am ready to get started on the project. Now I do have it starting off on the white pin. So I'm just going to take a long tail, put it into the center of the machine, and this is just some scrap yarn that I have, and I'm going to loop it under the white pin here, and then we're just going to actually go through and turn the knob of the machine, and we're going to go around every other pin. So I've gone under the white pin, I'm going around the next one, under this one, around the next, under, around, under, around, and I'm going to do this all the way around until I make it back to the white pin. Okay, now that I've made it back to the white pin, I'm just gonna set up the machine. So I'm gonna put the waste yarn through the yarn feeder, and I'm actually going to connect it under the hoops, or the loops of the yarn feeder right here. Sorry, you can't really see that, but here, I'm gonna do the last 2 loops, and then from here, I'm just gonna continue winding the machine and adding on the waste yarn until I reach, well, until I've used it up. So I like to, sorry about that. I like to use the yarn until about 9 or 10 rows, but if you can only get up to 5 or 6, that's perfectly fine as well. You just want to add that base of waste yarn so that you can have more crisp edges, and so that once you're starting with the yarn you're actually working with, the project, you don't have any wasted yarn. So here, with the first row, I don't really like the way that looks on my projects. That's why I do this waste yarn method. So I'm just going to keep going from here, and I'll show you guys what it looks like once the waste yarn has been added on and I'm ready to add my working yarn. Okay, so I made it out to 10 rows and I'm back at the white pin. So what I'm just going to do is take the remainder of the waste yarn and I'm going to unhook it from the yarn feeder and just throw it into the center of the project. Now I'll get the Now I have the tail end of my working yarn, and I'm just going to take it from here, throw a good amount. As you can see, it's a good amount of working yarn that's gone into the center, and I'm just going to loop that through my yarn feeder. And in this case, I'm going to use the maximum amount of tension, so I'm going to do all 3 loops on this little yarn holder here. Reset my counter, and now from here I'm actually going to do 150 rows. So I'm going to rely heavily on the counter to do 150 rows in the tube setting. So from here I'm just going to keep cranking the machine, and as you can see, make sure that it catches under all the hooks so that way you're not dropping any stitches. And I'm just going to continue building up the project from here with my working yarn now. So I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like once I'm a little bit further out, but from here you don't have to worry about weaving anything through once again, because with the waste yarn it already has been through. And I'll just show you guys what everything is looking like once I'm a little bit farther on and there is actually something to show. Okay, here it is at 51 rows, as you can see right there on the counter, and this is what it's looking like. The color has actually changed from the darker pink to the lighter pink. So soon I'm going to be getting over to the khaki color and it's going to start looking way more beautiful. But as you can see here, the tension that I have going on is pretty tight. So what I'm hoping is that once the project or the yarn is off of the machine and I stretch it out, it does open up a little bit more, but not too much. That's actually why I'm maintaining the tension so tight, because I do want it to open up a little bit and stretch, but I don't want it to stretch so much that it looks like there's holes in the project. So this is what it's looking like so far at 50 rows. I'll come back and check in when I'm at 100. Okay, here we are at 101 rows. It's starting to fold in on itself in the center, so I'm just going to keep going. Oh, and as you can tell, the color has changed, so I'm just going to keep going until I get to the part where I'm adding the waste yarn to cast off, so I can show you guys how to do that as well. But that's just going to be 50 more or 49 more rows, and I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like to add the waste yarn at the end, cast off, and what the tube is looking like at the end. So I'll come back and show you guys then. Okay, so I've made it to 150 rows, as you can see on the counter, and I did cut my yarn from the rest of the working yarn from the skein. So what I'm just going to do is add this portion into the center of the work, and I'm going to take my waste yarn. This is the yarn we're going to finish the project off with. Just going to loop it under that white hook and thread it through the yarn feeder here, as you can see. And now I'm gonna crank until I finish the waste yarn, and then I'll cast off. And again, you want to make sure that all of the hooks catch the yarn, so that way you're not dropping any hooks from your working yarn. Okay, and so now at this point, I'm going to just remove the yarn, the waste yarn, from the feeder, and I'm just going to crank another round until everything starts falling off of the machine. And there you have it. I'll come back and I'll show you guys what the tube is looking like once I get this part untangled. Okay, and this is what the tube looks like now that it's done. It does seem a little uneven, but that's just because this part was hanging off of the machine, so it did get a little bit more stretched out than this part. But once I'm ready to sew everything together, I'll make sure to even it out. But this is what it's looking like. This is 150 rows of knitting from the machine. And so I'm just going to continue. I'm going to make the other tube, and I'm also going to make the tube for the scarf. And then I'll come back and show you guys what all three pieces look like together. Okay, so I just wanted to come back and show you guys how it is that I take off the waste yarn and seal the ends. So as you can see here, in this case, you have the brown, which is the waste yarn, and then the dark pink, which is the yarn that's a part of the tube that I'm working on right now. So what I'm going to do is actually go under the loops of the pink here, that first or that last row, depending on how you want to look at it, right here. And we're going to go loop to loop. So we're going to be attaching the loops to each other. So I have the first loop here. So I'm just going to go onto this side here to the next loop and go right under it. Then we go across to the next loop and do the same thing. So we're going to work it right under. And we're basically going to be braiding the loops under one another to attach these ends together. So I'm just going to continue this way until I make it to the end. And it's going to be that very top loop. So I am keeping track of the loops on each side that I'm working on. And this actually helps to maintain the elasticity of the project, so it still has the same stretch. So as you can see, it goes building up this way and it seals the ends perfectly. So I'm just going to continue from here, and of course I'll show you guys what it looks like once it's done. Okay, so here's what all 3 panels are looking like. The longest panel is 350 rows. The shorter panels are both 150 rows, and this is what the edging looks like completed with the waste yarn removed. So now I'm just going to sew these 2 panels together, and then of course I'll sew them onto the scarf, and I'll show you guys what it looks like once it's finished. Okay, and here is the completed project. Please excuse any additional noise that you may hear, as I am at the airport right now, so that is the change of scenery that you are seeing here. But as you can tell, I was able to finish the project in time for my trip, and the project has actually been washed and dried, so it did become a lot more floppy, and the scarf and everything is a lot softer. So this is what it's looking like right now. If you do decide to make this project, please don't forget to tag me in your project, or of course you can always leave a comment down below and let me know how it went for you. I absolutely love the way that it turned out. I love the size of the hood and the length of the scarf, and I'm definitely in love with this yarn. So again, if you do decide to make this project, please do let me know, and don't forget to follow up with me over on my Instagram and TikTok at chaoticgirl_crafts. And of course, I adore everything about this project. I'm super happy that I was able to make it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed making it along with me. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy doing whatever it is you plan on doing for this weekend. Bye.